The wind screamed through the rafters like a thing alive, clawing at the old wooden tower that leaned with the weight of age and rot. It was not a place meant to last, just splinters, rusted nails, and mildew clinging to beams as if afraid to fall. But high atop it, a man stood alone, wrapped in rags, his face hidden from the world by strips of cloth, soaked in vinegar and old sweat. His name was not known. No one asked. No one cared. He was the gong farmer, the one who descended into the places others refused to speak of. Below him stretched the village, slumped in mud, its thatched roof sagging under damp air. The alleys swam with runoff. The pigs wallowed freely, their pink skin blackened with rot as they chewed through open gutters. A mother pulled her child close as she passed the tower, her eyes fixed forward, as if by not looking, she could unsee the truth that lived beneath her home. And still, he stood there. The man who carried the village's waste, its stench. It's a shame. His hands were swollen, fingers curled from years of hauling barrels of human filth. Nails cracked, knuckles raw. Skin is always damp, never clean. He reached for the rope and lowered it down into the dark, into a pit that once held laughter and drink, now filled with what the living cast away. At his hip, a small iron bell chimed, not loudly, not with urgency, but softly, as if just to say, "I'm still here. I exist." No one waved, no one nodded, but he rang it anyway. Perhaps long ago he had another life. A father who tilled earth, a mother who sang to geese. Perhaps there was a time when his name was spoken kindly. Now he was a shadow, a shape that moved through torchlight and night fog. The church knew him, but not as a soul, only as a coin. They took his copper, blessed his back from a distance, but never let him step beyond the nave. The children? They threw stones, laughed behind their sleeves, called him the ghost of dung. They said he could not die, that even the grave turned him away. He never replied, only walked on, dragging his hook behind him. Each night, while the village slept, he lit his torch and entered the alleys. Floorboards creaked, rats whispered in the walls. The city breathed in its filth, and he, the man with no name, scraped it free. It was a ritual, a grim, careful ballet of silence. He would crawl through tunnels thick with muck, where candles would not burn and the air soured the teeth. He would dig with iron in hands, clearing out what the world denied. And all the while he watched, not with eyes but with the gut instinct of someone always near collapse, always beside rot. He never spoke of fear, but some nights it clung to him like a second skin. The fear that one day he would slip and vanish beneath the waste, that no one would notice until the smell worsened, that his torch would gutter out and be mistaken for fog. In that darkness, he sometimes dreamed of clean rivers, of linen, of a woman's hand brushing his cheek. Then the dream would rot, swallowed by the stench, and he would wake to scraping again. Where did his own sorrow go? There was no grave for it, no mourning bell, only the pouch he wore near his ribs. Inside it, a withered sprig of rosemary, given to him once by a baker's daughter who said he smelled of storms. He kept it close, not for love, but for proof that once someone saw him. One dawn, as frost crept over the shingles, he stood again at the tower's edge. Below, the village shifted awake. Dogs barked, smoke rose. A man shouted at a mule, but no one looked up. A drop of something slid from his sleeve, not sewage, not water. A tear, perhaps, or the last of who he had once been. He let it fall, let it disappear into the filth where all things were equal, lord and beggar, priest and thief. Because down there, in the black gutters and pit mouths, truth had no voice, only echo. But tonight there will be a change. Far off, a bell was ringing, not his own, but from the hill chapel. A death toll. The old steward, perhaps, or the woman who sold herbs near the bridge. Or someone greater. Someone with robes and records, the village would mourn. Candles would be lit. And the man beneath them would return to the trench where grief flowed without names. And no one wore white, but something stirred within him, not rebellion, not hope, just the thought of leaving, of walking beyond the village edge, of never cleaning another pit, of seeing his hands dry again. He stepped back from the parapet, slowly as wind knotted the sky above him. Somewhere behind the clouds, the sun threatened to rise. Not warmly, but with that pale defiance only spring can offer after a brutal winter. And though no one saw him go, the bell did not ring that night. The alleys were quiet. The shadows are deeper. The filth remained. And somewhere down the road, perhaps a new story began, not one of mud and waste, but of something almost forgotten. A man remembering he was still alive. The wind moved like a blade, slipping cold and sharp through the broken teeth of the abbey walls. Its echo whistled down the empty corridors, hissing over stone worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Monks, pilgrims, now corpses. It was not yet dawn, but the infirmary held the gray stillness of a world on the edge of collapse. He knelt there, just inside the threshold, where torchlight flickered against the archway and shadows clung to the ceiling, like smoke. In his arms, limp, wrapped in sackcloth too thin for a child, lay a body with no name. He didn't ask. He never did. The plague had taken the voice long before it took the breath. Now only silence remained. A silence so thick it seemed to stretch between the vaulted rafters and the bones beneath the earth. The man's hands trembled, not from grief, but from cold and long years. The skin was thick, calloused from lime dust and the iron grip of the spade. His fingers still clutched a worn rosary, wood polished by sweat, not prayer. Its beads rattled faintly each time he moved, a lullaby for the dead. He rose slowly, lifting the girl as gently as if she were made of paper and wind. His shoulders hunched beneath a wool cloak, soaked through at the seams. Beneath it, the damp never left him, his skin always cold, always clinging to rot. Death had seeped into the stitching, into the very fibers of his breath. Outside, his cart waited, a wooden thing, creaking and blackened by years of sorrow. Its wheels sloshed through frozen mud, iron rims slick with decay. The road ahead curved beyond the abbey, past shuttered homes and shuttered hearts. No candle flickered, no hand waved. Only the occasional whisper behind a curtain. He's come. Again, children crossed themselves. Dogs whimpered and backed away. Even the priests looked down when he passed, except for one, the old friar who blessed the pit from a distance, mouthing scripture behind a veil of incense. The cart was never empty. Every morning he walked its path, through alleys where fever lived in silence, through churchyards where stone angels wept for no one, through orchards where the fruit trees bore nothing but crows. Each turn of the wheel marked another name forgotten, another story swallowed by the earth. He laid her beside the others, gently, like tucking her into sleep. Then came the strip of linen, the spade, and the prayer, spoken not aloud, but inside his chest like a wound that never closed. Domine, miserere. Domine, miserere. The grave was not a grave. It was a pit, a gaping mouth carved beyond the orchard wall, dug wider every week. Sometimes he thought it groaned in hunger. Sometimes when the wind was cruel, he thought he heard voices from within, not crying, just the memory of breathing. He did not speak to the dead. That was not his work. His job was to carry, to bury, to disappear again before morning. But once, a boy clutched his sleeve as he passed. "Will you remember me?" The boy had asked, voice rasping through fever. The man had frozen, not because of fear, but because something in that voice had sounded familiar. He didn't answer. He never did. What would remembering change? Would it stop the cough or the blackening skin? Would it cleanse the bones once they were swallowed in lime and dust? No. Remembering was for the living, and he no longer belonged to them. Some said he had buried his own child here years ago. That grief silenced him. Others believed he had never spoken at all, born under an eclipse, cursed by the stars. The truth was simpler. There was no space left in him for anything but duty, or perhaps penance. The difference had long since faded. The morning fog thickened, curling around his shoulders like a cloak. The burial pit waited. He stood on its edge, hands at his sides, eyes hollow beneath the hood. Crows circled in the bare trees above. There, calls like broken bells. He dropped the spade, paused, and then, for the first time in many years, he sat beside the pit. Not to rest, not to pray, but to listen, to the earth, to the quiet, to the memory of all he had buried. And in that silence, something shifted. The girl's sackcloth shivered slightly, as if caught by breath. Sure, it was just the wind. Only the cold, curling into folds of fabric. But for a moment, just a breath, he thought he heard a voice again. "Will you remember me?" His lips parted. No sound came, but deep inside, the answer was already there. He would. He always did. And as he rose, cloak heavy with sorrow, the first light of day slipped through the orchard's branches. Pale and thin, like hope stretched too far, but still. It came. Behind him the abbey bell tolled once, soft, distant. Another soul gone. Ahead the road twisted toward the next house, the next face, the next farewell unspoken. But in the corner of the cart, nestled between linen folds and frost, a single white feather had fallen, and he did not brush it. The wind moved slowly across the field, warm and strange, like breath still lingering after death. Smoke no longer rose, and the clang of swords had long since faded. Now only the flies sang, thick in the air like a plague with wings. The sun burned low, stretching blood-soaked shadows across the torn land. At the edge of it all, in the quiet where the dead lay forgotten, a figure knelt beneath a broken banner. Its colors faded, its cloth tangled in the brambles like a torn memory. His hands were black with old blood, shaking slightly as they reached into the mud. The tongs gripped a bone, cracked, pitted, streaked with soil. A rib, maybe. He didn't check. Not now. There were too many. He placed it gently in the sack at his side. "Rest now, brother," he whispered, the words barely louder than the flies. This was his work, not glory, not gold. Just bones. He was the collector, the one who came after war. Had moved on after the kings had left, after the songs had turned to silence. He did not come to count the dead. He came to remember them in pieces, femurs broken like snapped branches, skulls caved in, some with helmets still half clinging, fingers curled tight, as if still holding weapons long since stolen. There was no order, no honor, only fragments. He picked them up one by one, never rushing. For each, a quiet word. Sometimes, "Sir," sometimes, "My friend." Always with care. The stench was a thing of its own, not just rot, but iron. Fear, and something older. His nose bled often now. Maybe gas, maybe something deeper. Maybe his soul is fleeing. No one watched him. No one waited. Except the crows. He worked until his shoulders burned, until the sun kissed the horizon in red. His sack grew heavy. He stood slowly, back bent, and walked the long path home. His shack stood near the woods, where the trees whispered old things and the moss grew thick between the roots. There was no door, only a cloth of woven reeds. Inside, it smelled of ash and damp stone. Bones lay in careful piles along the walls, not discarded, but waiting. Each stack is marked with a scrap of cloth, a bit of string, or a carving in the wood above. A date, a symbol, sometimes just a single letter. He remembered them. He tried. Sometimes he found a broken seal among the ribs. Sometimes a rusted buckle, a dented ring. When he did, he carved initials into the bone, slow, silent, as if afraid to be wrong. He once found a ring still on a finger. A woman's name was etched inside. He walked for a day and a half to return it. The widow took it without words. She closed the door before her tears could be seen. He never asked for thanks. He never stayed in the village. Some called him a ghoul. Others turned their eyes down when he passed. A few crossed themselves, muttering prayers to keep the dead from following. But none of them touched the bones. None of them walked the battlefield. Once the banners fell, that was his path. Someone had to carry what war left behind. Someone had to remember that every skeleton was once a man who laughed, who feared, who called out for his mother in his last breath. So he did. Alone at night, he sat beside the fire, hands raw, back aching. Bones watched him from the corners. Not accusing, just waiting. The flames crackled. Shadows danced like soldiers without faces. Sometimes he dreamed of the battlefield, but not of the fighting. Only the quiet that came after, the bones beneath his hands. The soft way he spoke to them. The weight of carrying what no one else would touch. He could not save them, but he could gather them, bring them back to the earth. That was enough. That had to be. Outside, the moon rose high, pale, hollow, watching. He stepped outside and listened at night. No drums, no horns. Just the rustle of trees and the sound of his own breath. A mist crept across the field beyond the trees. Silver and still. Tomorrow, he will return. The dead would still be there. And he would kneel again beneath the broken banner. But tonight, he placed one more skull on the shelf beside the others. And for a moment, in the silence, he bowed his head, not in grief, not in worship, but in simple, wordless respect. Because even forgotten bones deserve that. The walls breathe smoke. Inside the flue, the world is narrow and black, a tunnel of heat and grit, where even the light cannot follow. The stone is damp with centuries of fire. Every inch of it burns or bites. And still something moves, slowly, desperately. Small hands, raw and trembling, claw their way up the inside of the chimney. Elbows grind against brick. Knees slip on soot. A cough echoes, deep, wet, sharp like a blade. Then silence. Then movement again. He is a climbing boy. Sold like rope. Bent like wire. And this chimney is his master now, above him. Just a faint shimmer. A sliver of pale light seeping through the iron grate. But he knows it's far. Too far. Below him, only the dark and the whistle. That sharp, cruel sound. His handler blows when he's too slow. The master waits outside, boots clean, switch in hand. Watching the smoke rise, he taps his foot and smiles at the wealthy man handing him a coin. Behind that warm smile, a cold promise. The chimney will be cleaned. No matter who chokes in the process. Inside, the child pushes upward. Every breath is poison. Ash coats his lips. His voice is gone. The soot has taken it. Still he climbs. The houses he cleans are golden. Roast meat by the fire. Laughter from the table. Mothers humming lullabies above floorboards he will never touch. He is the invisible servant of their warmth, the shadow behind the flame. He sleeps in a sack, beside the brushes, beside the iron rods and scraping tools. They are his only blankets. His dreams are blackened, stained with smoke. No mother. No name, just orders. Sometimes in the narrow dark, he sings to himself. Little songs, broken melodies. Half-remembered verses of a cradle tune from years ago. It helps him forget he cannot turn. That his ribs ache from the squeeze. That his fingertips bleed against stone. Once, he got stuck. The bricks had narrowed. His breath had quickened. Panic swallowed him whole. He screamed. He screamed for hours. No one came, until they finally yanked him down by the ankles, skin torn, eyes wide with silence. He could not walk for days. But the next morning, the whistle blew again. And he climbed. Because that's what he was bought for. In winter, he huddles near the hearths he just cleaned, waiting for the last coal to cool before curling into sleep. The firewood scraps are his blanket. The stone is his bed. In summer, the heat inside the flues scalds his palms. He peels skin from his fingers like bark from trees. But he does not stop. There is no stopping. This is not punishment. This is a profession. In these streets, filled with towers and bells, where noblemen drink wine and gossip in silk, someone must keep the chimneys clean, and the cost is paid by the smallest. He is the coin. Sometimes, just before reaching the top, he sees stars through the grate, a crack of sky, and for a moment he believes he could fly. That if he stretched just a little more, he could rise up and out, into the wind, past the rooftops, into the dark where no soot can reach. But the grate never opens. It never does. So he wipes his face with the back of a shaking hand, swallows the ash in his throat, and climbs down again, silent, invisible. Some chimneys are colder than others. Some are long forgotten, filled with birds or rats. And in those he feels less afraid, because there, in silence, nobody is waiting. No whistle, no switch, no coin exchanging hands, only stone. Only dark. Only him. And sometimes that is safer than the warmth above. The city sleeps, its rooftops glowing orange from hearthlight. Inside a dozen chimneys, the heat lingers. But in one, the ashes are still warm from small hands. He'll return tomorrow. He always does. But tonight, curled in his sack, a flake of soot still stuck to his eyelashes, he dreams of stars again. Of flying, of open air, of being more than a shadow behind the flame. And the wind outside whispers a promise, even if he cannot hear it yet, that no child should be coined. And that someday, the smoke will clear. The wind moves gently through the trees, but beneath the branches, the air is heavy, thick with the scent of decay, sweat, and boiled rot. Man kneels in the clearing behind the abbey. His hands hover over a wide iron cauldron, steam curling upward like ghosts from another world. Inside, the cloth turns, churned in a brew of pus, bile, and river-stained tincture. The fire beneath it crackles softly, but the man does not flinch. His skin is used to heat, to pain, to blood. They call him the leech collector, but no one calls him by name. Each dawn, before even the abbey bell tolls, he rises, alone, barefoot, always barefoot. His sandals were lost years ago, sucked into the marsh like the screams of those who bled too long. Now his feet are hardened things, split at the edges, stained dark from bog water and old bruises. He walks toward the wetlands, always the wetlands. There, the earth breathes slow and wet, and the reeds slice skin like knives. The mud grips his ankles. Black water seeps into every cut, and beneath its still surface, the leeches stir. He kneels there too, always kneeling, one hand steady in the water, the other holding a glass jar open. He waits, listens, feels. When the first bite comes, he does not flinch. When the second comes, he smiles. The leeches are feeding, and that means he is doing his work. By midday, the sack at his waist writhes, pulsing with creatures swollen on his blood. He ties the cloth tight, even though they squirm and press against the seams like restless spirits. Then he turns and walks back to the apothecary. The swamp scent clings to him, a permanent robe stitched in filth. Even when the monks pass, incense under his nose, it stays. Even when rain pours for days, it stays. The apothecaries never look at him long. He enters through the side, always through the side, where the floor is stained and the walls are bare. He empties the sack onto the stone. The sound soft, wet, living. Fresh, he mutters. They barely nod. Sometimes they toss him bread, sometimes nothing. And still, he returns. His job is not to heal, it is not to question. It is only to supply, to harvest the hunger of medicine and superstition. He knows the veins that bleed best, the ones closest to the skin. He's watched patients scream as the leeches suck. I watch them pale. Fate, rage, he does not flinch then either. His hands are covered in tiny, dark scabs, the marks of mouths that never thanked him. His wrists bear older wounds, infections that once rose like fire through his arms. Once, he nearly died. Fevered, delirious, he heard the leeches whisper. Or maybe it was the wind. At night, when the world is quiet and the abbey lights dim, he burns sage beside his bed of straw. Smoke rises in soft curls, like prayers too tired to reach heaven. He lies still and listens, to the wind, to the insects, to the ache in his bones. They say he consorts with devils, that his sack is cursed, that he can talk to leeches, but he knows the truth. They do not speak. They only take. And still, he listens. To the silence between screams, to the slow rhythm of blood drop by drop, to the moments when suffering becomes ritual and ritual becomes survival. There was once a child brought to the apothecary, fevered, trembling, eyes rolling back. The physician ordered bleeding. The leech collector stood quietly, hands behind his back, watching. The child whispered something, a prayer, maybe, or a goodbye. The man placed the leech gently, carefully, as if placing a star on skin. And for a moment, the room held its breath. He remembers that. Not the name, not the face, just the stillness. In a world where blood was currency, he dealt in the quiet moments no one else saw. He returns to the wetlands before dawn, again, always again. The trees do not greet him. The birds do not sing, but the water knows him. The leeches know his warmth. And as he kneels again, the reeds swaying softly around him, the first bite comes, and he exhales. Somewhere in the distance, behind abbey walls, someone cries out, a sharp, helpless cry, and the leeches feed. He does not look up. He does not stop, because this is what he does. He feeds the hunger of medicine, even if it swallows him whole. And somewhere deeper, beneath the roots and mud, something begins to stir. A darker sickness growing in the lungs of cities, waiting to erupt. A sickness even the leeches will not satisfy. But for now, the blood flows. The silence holds. And the man kneels, listening. The wind is colder at this height, sharper, thinner, laced with the silence of centuries. Far above the cathedral nave, where stone ribs arch like the bones of giants, a figure creeps along a wooden beam no wider than a handbreadth. His body pressed low, candle trembling in one hand, a stiff bristled brush in the other. He does not speak. He dares not. One slip and he will fall. But this is not his first time among the gargoyles. He is the steeple, cleaner, nameless to most, faceless to all, the man who climbs higher than the bells, who walks where only pigeons rest, who scrubs the backs of angels whose wings have long since chipped. Beneath him, the cathedral swells with sound. Priests chant in Latin, their voices weaving like smoke through the pillars and pews. But their eyes never lift. Their prayers never reach the ceiling where he crouches, bracing against stone damp with morning mist. The wind moans through broken arches, it pulls at his cloak like a jealous hand. He breathes slowly, tasting soot and cold copper in the air. He wipes at a gargoyle's face, one eye cracked, mouth forever frozen in a scream. The brush rasps against bird droppings, hardened by time, stained with moss and soot. Ivy curls around its jaw like a noose. A dead raven clings to a nearby ledge, its wings splayed like a black flag, caught in a storm weeks ago. He gently lifts it, cradles it for a moment, then drops it into the sack tied to his waist. He climbs every morning before the sun, alone, always alone. No one escorts him. No one watches him rise. He eats crusts of old bread in the lofts above the choir stalls, drinks from a rain barrel hidden behind the bell tower, sleeps curled against sacks of moldy hymnals, head resting on a spare cloak. He speaks only when spoken to, which is rare. Once he slipped. A wooden beam, slick with frost, betrayed him. He landed hard, the sound swallowed by snow and sky. His rib broke. He told no one. He lay there for a while, watching the clouds move overhead like passing saints. Then, slowly, he stood and finished the day's work. He returned the next week. As if nothing had happened. His hands are never fully whole, cracked, split at the knuckles, permanently etched with grime. His boots, hand-stitched, gifted by a silent monk, now bleed through at the soles. Every step leaves a quiet print of suffering. No one thanks him. Sometimes, a coin is left on the ledge near the apse. Other times, nothing. Still he climbs. He scrapes soot from the old bells that no longer ring. Their silence is his music. There. Wait, his burden. He believes they once sang louder than thunder, that they shook the hearts of kings and peasants alike. But now they hang like ghosts, heavy and mute, wrapped in cobwebs and forgotten prayers. And yet, he wipes them clean, as if they might one day speak again. There is something sacred in this work, not in reward, but in doing. Each morning, as light spills slowly over the distant hills, the sun reaches through the high arches. It glances off the stained glass. It touches his cheek, and when the sky clears, and the bell tower is washed in gold, he can see the town below, roof still sleeping, chimneys yawning smoke, market stalls being built like prayer altars. The world looks still, pure, forgiven. In that moment, suspended between heaven and stone, he believes that the pain matters, that his hands, worn raw, have touched something eternal. That even in silence, his place among the saints is not without grace. But clouds are gathering again. Dark, thick, heavy with rain. And far below, the town's well runs lower than it should. Children cough behind shutters. Crows gather on rooftops. There are whispers of fever in the alleyways. And soon, the cathedral doors will creak open for more than worship. Soon, the prayers will grow louder. More desperate, more final. But for now, he climbs. And wipes clean. Face of angels. The bell tolls once, low, slow, and hollow, and midnight begins. A lantern flickers to life. The night watchman rises from his bench, stiff bones groaning louder than he does. The wooden boards beneath him creak like a ship in a storm, but he moves without complaint. He was not made for comfort. He was made for silence, for waiting. He lifts the lantern. Light dances on frost-slicked walls. Smoke lingers near the rooftops. Thin as breath, the village sleeps. Or tries to. The night does not. The streets twist like old scars, narrow, damp, layered in secrets. Beneath shutters, soft arguments rise and fall. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then stops. Footsteps echo in the wrong direction. A window shuts too quickly. The watchman walks. His steps are slow, careful, and memorable. He knows which cobblestones are loose, which cellar grates hold the scent of meat, which alley holds only shadows, and which holds worse. In his right hand, he carries a club. Heavy, ash wood, worn smooth where his fingers always grip it. But he rarely lifts it. It is not the weapon that keeps the village calm. It is his voice. All's well. The call breaks the dark like a bell. Calm, steady, practice. It is a lie, often, but a needed one. A lie that lets children sleep. That keeps restless men from rising. That tells the lonely not to scream. He calls it again. All's well. But he knows better. He has seen what walks behind closed doors, what grows in silence. Fires that start not with flame, but with grief. Fights that end in ruin, love that turns to blood. He has seen wolves come down from the hills. Quiet, cunning, eyes like lantern glass. He has watched them tear a chicken coop apart and vanish before the farmer's scream reached the moon. He has seen lovers fleeing barefoot, clutching satchels and prayers, vanishing into the woods where no road leads. He has found the smallest tragedies, a cradle left on the church steps, A child bundled in rags, a note pinned to its chest. No name, just a plea, forgive me. He buried the note in his coat pocket. It's still there. His cloak smells of old smoke, the kind that never leaves. His bed of damp wool. Rain has soaked through again. The night is colder than usual. He walks past the bakery. A shutter flaps once, like a wing, all's well. He walks past the tavern. Silence now, though earlier it bled with songs and fists. A tankard rolls down a step and comes to rest against his boot. He bends to pick it up. Set it quietly on the WINDO WSILL dot in tuneless. Not for joy, but to fill the spaces between memories. There are things that visit. Him when the village sleeps, faces, sounds. The man he found hanging from the bell rope, his body swaying in rhythm with the hour. He cut him down. Wrapped him in a canvas cloak. Buried him just beyond the orchard, where wildflowers bloom early in spring. No one asked. No one wanted to know. The night keeps its secrets, and the watchman is their shepherd. He reaches the square. The fountain stands still, crusted in ice. A crow hops along its edge, unafraid. The bell tower looms above. Its great bronze heart sleeps, but not forever. He remembers how it rang once for war, once for plague, once, only once, for hope. Now, it marks the hours. Each toll is like a breath in the lungs of the village. Each round he walks, a heartbeat. Unseen, uncelebrated, but essential. He sits again as the wind picks up, wraps his cloak tighter. Lantern flickering low. In the distance, a scream, faint, sharp, quickly silenced. He does not move, not yet. He waits, because in the hours between midnight and dawn, silence is not peace. It is a question, and the watchman listens for the answer. A drop of water falls, cold, precise, onto stone already wet with years. In the dungeon's lowest corridor, where light cannot crawl and time forgets its pace, a man sharpens iron. The rasp of whetstone on the blade is slow, steady, final. He does not whistle. He does not pray. His chamber smells of vinegar and mold, rust and memory. Chains sway above him, whispering in the drafts like the ghosts of those who no longer scream. He sharpens still. His face carries no anger, no joy, just the mask of habit, of purpose. His lips are thin. His eyes, pale, unreadable, see neither sin nor sanctity, only function, only flesh. This is not hatred. This is not cruelty. This is the crown's design. He is no monster in his eyes. He is a tool, a hinge in the great door of order. His job is to open what men hide. Pain is not the punishment. Pain is the key. And so he prepares. He cleans his table with vinegar, rubs away what the last hour left behind. Blood, spit. He scrubs until the wood smells sharp and sour, until it no longer remembers the names it heard. Then he sets out the tools, hooks, tongs, iron pinchers, a box of heated coals. Each has a name. None are spoken aloud. Once, a boy was sent down with fresh clothes. He ran when he saw the bench. The man let him go. He did not like the sound of children crying. He does not enjoy the work, but enjoyment is not required. Order is. Confession brings peace. So the priests say. The nobles sip their wine, speak of stability, justice, deterrence. He does not drink with them. He does not speak at all, unless asked. He remembers a man, a scholar, thin, shaking, who looked him in the eye and whispered, "Do you believe you have a soul?" He did not answer, but the question lodged in his chest like splintered wood. He still hears it in silence. In the moments before the scream, in the silence after. Does he? There's no mirror in the chamber. Only flames. He once dreamt of bells tolling, loud, urgent, ringing across the city in a panic. But no one came. No guards, no priests, not even the rats, only the sound, and the silence that followed. He woke with sweat on his back and the taste of copper in his mouth. He shook it off. Dreams are not his concern, only the truth, or what passes for it beneath stone. He begins again. The iron is warm now. The chains have stopped moving. He listens for footsteps, for the scrape of boots against the stair. Soon, they will bring another, a name, a charge, a face already carved with fear. He will ask questions, same thing, over and over, until the mouth says what the parchment needs, not because he wants to, because silence is dangerous. And the realm must not crack. This dungeon is not evil. It is simply below the palace, beneath the courtrooms, beneath the music, beneath the mercy. Some call him a butcher, others a servant of order. He believes neither. He is the space between questions and answers, the shadow behind the law. His conscience is not clean, but his hands are steady. Tomorrow he will return, because the crown demands silence, and he is its echo. And beyond the walls, as the wind shifts, we hear a different sound rising, not of steel, but of steps in the dark. A whisper in the chapel, a candle snuffed by trembling fingers. Another story stirs. Another soul waits. A swarm of flies hums over the stall, thick as breath in a closed mouth. The market teems with noise, merchants shouting, horses stamping, coins clinking on stone. But in one corner, carved from the bustle, like a shadow in daylight, stands a man alone. The tanner. He does not speak. He does not need to. His trade speaks for him, with stench, with steam, with the quiet ache of necessity. Around him hang the skins of beasts stretched tight, still wet, their edges curled like burned paper. The sun bakes the hides into hardness. Behind him, vats bubble with rot, lime, urine, filth. A stew of chemical ghosts. He stirs it with a wooden pole, slowly, purposefully. His hands do not flinch. They are thick with callus, etched with years of flesh and brine. Blood seeps into his cuticles, never quite scrub it away. Even in sleep, they remain stained. Kids cross the street as they pass him. The priests bless the bread, but not the man, who wraps it in cured leather. His skin is raw where smoke meets sweat. His throat burns from fumes. His boots squish in the muck beneath his stall, a slurry of bile and bone and what once had breath. Yet still, he works, because the knight needs a saddle, because the soldier needs boots, because the bishop's throne is padded with ox hide. The world above him rides on what he shapes in silence. He remembers once, years ago, shaping a pair of boots for a nobleman. The knight did not speak, did not look him in the eye, but he took the boots, wore them into winter, came back the next year. Not to thank him, but for another pair. The tanner felt something then, not pride, not joy, but a kind of meaning. The boots endured, through snow, through war, through blood. That, at least, was something. He does not ask for more. He eats in silence. His meals taste of iron, sometimes salt, nothing sweet. He does not dream often, but when he does, they are quiet dreams of wind over wet hides, of his father's hands in the same vat, of leather folded like paper under the weight of his knife. No one blesses the hands that touch death after the butcher. No one sings of the man who makes the world walk forward, but still he shapes, still he scrapes, still he endures. In his solitude, he builds what others use and forget. He does not tell stories, but his work becomes them. Straps saving a soldier from a fall, a sheath that holds a blade until the final breath, a belt passed from father to son. He will never see the moments, but they pass through him. And at sunset, when the stalls close and the market stills, he stays behind, kneeling in filth, arms deep in blood water, whispering to no one. The world calls him unclean, but it rests on his shoulders. And beyond the smoke and steam, as night prepares its curtain, the wind carries a sound, softer than hooves, quieter than coin, a weeping behind stone walls, A prayer whispered by rough hands that another labor awaits. Another story begins. Somewhere in the hollow gut of the mountain, a man sings into the dark, not a song for joy, not even for hope, just a low, steady hum to keep the silence from swallowing him whole. His name is not remembered in the court records. His hands do not sign treaties. He does not wear armor nor ride under banners. Yet without him, kings would rot, armies would starve, and peace would crumble like spoiled bread. He's a miner of salt. Here, beneath stone older than memory, he lifts his pick again. The iron head strikes the wall. Sparks fly, then vanish into the black dot. Dust rises. He breathes it in. It coats his throat, grinds against his lungs like sand in a wound. Every breath is a battle. Every blink stings with salt. His eyes, red and raw, weep without tears, but still he digs. Salt glimmers faintly in the tunnel walls, like stars behind clouds. Beautiful, yes, but the miner no longer sees beauty. He sees weight. He sees hunger. He sees survival. The torch behind him flickers. Shadows stretch and curl like serpents across the jagged stone. The air is damp, close, and heavy. Every sound is loud here. The drip of water, the rasp of breath, the dull thud of pick to rock. Each strike echoes like thunder. And still, he hums. He has lost men in this place. Brothers, friends, crushed beneath sudden collapses, drowned in underground floods. Some simply vanished, swallowed by the deep. There are no headstones. No bells. Only silence. No priest has blessed this land. No candles burn in its name. And yet it feeds the world. Salt, white as bone, bitter as blood. It preserves food for the winter, lines the rim of kings' goblets, buys peace between hungry nations. But it burns. It burns his open cuts, his cracked lips. It clings to his skin like shame. Even after he washes, he tastes it still. There's no dignity in this work. Number, applause, no reward beyond another day. He could stop. He could walk away. But hunger does not. So he returns. Each morning, before the sun warms the village rooftops, he's already below, torch in hand, alone with the mountain. Its silence is a kind of language now. He reads its creaks, its sighs. He knows when the stone grows restless, but knowledge cannot stop collapsing, only delay it. His hands are thick and split. His back bows from the weight of years. He carries sacks of white stone that glimmer like snow, but taste of blood. He once told his daughter when she asked what salt was made of. Tears, mostly. She laughed. He did not. There are no songs for men like him, only the ache in his bones. The ghosts of voices once heard. The deep, cold breath of the tunnel. And yet, without him, the soldiers' meat would spoil, the bread would sour, the winter would kill. The world walks clean because he works in filth. When he leaves the mine at dusk, the light feels foreign. The wind was too soft. The sky is too wide. He squints, as if re-entering a dream he no longer trusts. His shoulders are streaked white with dust. He smells earth, sweat, and salt. No one stops him on the road. No one asks how the day went. But in his silence, in his shadowed labor, kingdoms are fed. Armies march. Bread is saved from rot. And tomorrow, he will return, not because he is strong, but because he cannot afford to stop. The mountain waits, and far away, in a castle where torches gleam and goblets clink, a noble breaks his bread without a second thought. The salt touches his lips. He does not taste the man buried beneath it, but the salt remembers.